I just want to highlight a few things. I'm worried really about how much the fuzzy thinking is going on in the world. Fuzzy thinking, people just not thinking straight. What we're not valuing is knowledge as process rather than knowledge as an answer. If you're an employer and two candidates come up looking for a job, and you're interviewing the two candidates, and you say, as for part of this interview, I just want to ask you, what's the height of the spire on this building that we're in? And the candidate says, I was an architect. I've majored in architecture for a while, and I memorized the heights of all the buildings on campus. I know. The height of that spire is 150 feet. In fact, 155 feet tall. Okay, turns out that's the right answer. That's the right answer. And the person came up with it in seconds. That person goes away, the next candidate walks in. Do you know the height of the spire on this building? The candidate says, no, but I'll be right back. Person runs outside, measures the length of the shadow of that spire on the ground, measures the length of her own shadow, ratios the height to the shadows, comes up with a number. Runs back inside, it's about 150 feet. Who are you going to hire? I'm hiring the person who figured it out, even though it took that person longer, even though the person's answer is not as precise. I'm hiring that person, because that person knows how to use the mind in a way not previously engaged. You realize when you know how to think, it empowers you far beyond those who know only what to think.
That was Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with who he is. If not, I'll drop the link in the description box below and you can start your process of research there. But for the time being, he's an African American. He's a black man who's an astrophysicist, a planetary scientist, an author, and 1,000 other things. And for that, I am proud of him. And today, we are on the same page. This moment, this day, for that 2-minute clip, he and I are here. Like Martin used to say, for those of you who used to watch Martin, we here. I understand him. Because the way people are thinking right now, especially today, is off the chain. Now, I know we've had over the last year a lot of added pressure, okay? But even before that phenomenon happened, even before that, people were still absolutely, staunchly committed to not knowing something. Not knowing something. This shouldn't still be happening today. And you know what? Let me say one thing about today. And I hope I'm wrong, but I think very soon, in the near future, we're going to look back on this day and realize that this was the worst day ever. Anyway, yeah, fuzzy thinking. You know, as I drive throughout the cities and counties on a daily basis, there was an alarming trend happening with drivers. And if you don't believe me, start watching for this. You know when you're coming to an intersection and there's a driver on the right side who has to stop first before he makes his right turn or she makes her right turn as you come through the intersection? Well, many drivers are no longer stopping or even slow rolling if you live in California. If they do not see anybody in their immediate peripheral, they're going to take that corner at 15 to 20 miles an hour. Coming through an intersection, a large intersection. What are you thinking about where you are never thinking about stopping as you're coming through an intersection where you do not have the right of way? This is an alarming trend. Just watch out for it, especially big cities. Watch out for it. It is amazing to watch. You can't even switch lanes trying to get into the right-hand lane nearest the curb because people are shooting out of these driveways, and they think because there's no car in their immediate lane that it's still safe to make that turn, even though there's a car approaching in the very next lane over. This is amazing to watch. Grown adults, many of them with gray hair. One day I was in, what is the city? It's slipping me by now. Off the 15, way down the 15, Hesperia. And this lady was probably 70 years old. I am coming through, I've passed the intersection, my signal's on to get in the right-hand lane, and she saw the signal come on, and I am probably two or three car lengths as I'm approaching her driveway, and she pulled out anyway, as slow as she could. What are you thinking about? Where this makes sense. And not only did you make a dumb decision, you did it slowly. I know y'all feel me out here. Why am I talking about this? Because the dumb decision making is everywhere. It is proliferating. And I'm saying this because when I first started this podcast, I was under the impression that, you know what, there's a large scale opening and awakening of people's minds. People are going to start making, better rational decisions. So I was encouraged about that. And then over the last couple of months, the last year really, if I'm being honest, as I look at people driving throughout the day, I have to rehash that thought, that belief. I have to think about it some more, because hoping or pretending, or not even pretending, but saying there is a mass or a large scale awakening, saying that does not necessarily match with what I am seeing. You get me? Let me give you one more example. And I'm choosing driving because, I was just at work this morning, and it's something that all of us, or most of us, can relate to. People can be doing 80, 85 miles an hour, 75, 80, whatever your speed is, right? In the fast lane, the carpool lane. And here you have somebody coming up doing probably close to 100 and will pull up as close as they can to you to try and get you to move out of the way at 85 miles an hour. Not considering at all, what if there's something ahead of me where I may have to stop suddenly? What if there's a pothole, and I have to slow down or swerve? You are putting yourself in a bad situation. What are you thinking about? And the worst part about all this bad driving is, if you're like me, when you drive by, you're going to look like, really? Is that what's going on in that gray hair of yours? You understand? I do that. You know what I mean? Because I'm not worried about the outcome, because I'm with it too. You know what I mean? But when you look at them, they look at you like there's something wrong with you. Fuzzy thinking. Asleep at the wheel. God, that's so good. Off the chain. Asleep. And the only thing, honestly, that I can attribute this to, and it may be far-reaching, but I think our phones, the speed at which we get to do things, the speed at which we get information, the speed at which we can contact people and get across the globe in the palm of our hands, is, to me, I could be wrong, it's just as I think about it, it is somehow or another in our subconscious creating the need for more speed in everything we do. I've always been impatient, right? But now, you know, I'm not going to lie and say I didn't get better, but now it's like, I'm not waiting in no lines, and maybe that's, the current situation at hand. But if I can avoid any waiting anywhere, anytime, I'm doing it. If I pay more, pay less, cool. I'm not doing no waiting. But I don't think I'm endangering anybody that way. But I think these phones are playing a huge role in that. And maybe there are other things, but for it to be so widespread everywhere on the road, that's the only thing I can think that would give it, that could make it so. Any case, just my thoughts. Moving on. But as I just mentioned, when you drive by these people, they're looking at you like you're crazy. In the street, they are holding you, the thinker. They are nailing you to the cross for holding them accountable for doing something dumb and dangerous. Something a 17-year-old kid would do. When I just got my license and we used to go cruising down the boulevard, I would do the dumb thing. Now that I know it's dumb, right? But I would get in the far right lane nearest the curb. I didn't come all the way to the crosswalk. I would give myself enough room so as the light turned yellow, this is before we had arrows, I'm dating myself, before we had the arrows. So as the light from the opposing intersection turns yellow, I would start accelerating so that by the time I hit the crosswalk, my light was green to continue. Never once thinking, what if some fool, somebody just as dumb as me, is still trying to make the light from the opposing intersection. I would do this every Sunday. Wasn't thinking. So I am not guilty of these things. As a young man, sure. Am I doing that now? Hell no. Do you know how much insurance? Do you know how much insurance would be? When I was that age, my insurance for full coverage in the 90s was $300 and something for somebody who was working part-time. You hear me? That's huge. That is huge. That was half my check. Now, I'm trying to keep my discounted my discounted coverage. You're tripping. But yeah, I'm not guilty of it. Thinking. And nobody held me to the cross. Nobody tied me to the cross over that. Which is probably another shameful thing. But we were all the same age. But the point I'm making is no matter where you are, whether you're on the street, whether you're in a personal relationship, top of the food chain, wherever you are going to be held and strapped to the cross for thinking and telling people the truth. What world are we living in where this is a problem? Several years back when I was going out and clubbing and things like that, a bunch of us, we went out to a club and came back to the room, and it was a mixture of us, black people, white people, everything. And so I don't remember how we got to that, but there was a young white lady that says, why don't black people accept me? I think it was from an economic standpoint because she wasn't rich. You know what I mean? She's, pretty much just like the rest of us. And I thought it was a honest conversation, just a general, honest conversation. So I said, for all these reasons, right? Because you don't know what it's like to have the police following you around, jacking you up. You don't know what it's like to be profiled in all these different places. You don't know what it's like, all these different reasons, right? And I thought that was the end of the conversation. And from that point on, it took me like 10 years to figure this out, going on this journey with the XJWs. It took me all this time to figure out only reason she hated me from that point forward. That was the only interaction she and I really ever had. We knew of each other. We saw each other high and by. But that was the first conversation we had that I explained the truth of the matter to her. Everybody was in the room, so I'm not lying to anybody. I wasn't disrespectful. It's not even my nature to be disrespectful to people. But from that day forth, she hated me and made it known.